So recently, Justice Petney of the federal court held a webinar with around 400 lawyers discussing the basics of Zoom. Now, the federal court felt they needed to do this because lawyers aren't getting it right. Lawyers appearing in front of the federal court are making these big mistakes that are annoying and aggravating the judges. So I watched that video. I've linked it down below so you can watch it too. And I've extracted 10 tips from the judge himself that will make your virtual hearing appearances better. And I've made this top 10 video, top 10 tips, how to make your virtual hearings better. So get out a pen and paper and let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we understand the software we're using and we know how to use all the different features that it offers. One thing Justice Petney did say, which resonated with me, is do not learn on the fly. They don't want you sitting around looking at your screen, trying to figure out the software during a hearing. This is the same as in an oral hearing where you can't find the page or you didn't bring a document to court or something along those lines. It's very bad for your advocacy. So learn the software before you get to your hearing. So number 2 is pre-plan with opposing counsel. If you can, speak to opposing counsel before the hearing to discuss how you want the hearing to go, some of the different procedures that you're going to use, whether you're going to screen share or rely on documents in front of you, how you're going to do objections, how much time everyone needs. This is a good piece of advice for in-person hearings, but it is something that Justice Petney mentioned for virtual hearings as well. So the next thing to think about is framing your shot, making sure you have light on your face so you can be seen. You want to be in the middle of the camera, a little bit of headroom between your head and the end of the shot, middle of your chest, not too much on the sides. Justice Petney specifically mentioned having parties in the back of a boardroom where you can't see them, and he also mentioned having people too close to the camera. So you want to be just like I am now, nicely framed. You want your witness to be like this as well. Remember, the judge is looking at your face. He's looking at your witness's face during your arguments, during their evidence, to help judge credibility and things like that. Make sure you pay attention to your background. If you're going to use a natural background or a virtual background, make sure it's plain, non-distracting, and it's not moving. Virtual backgrounds with movement and video backgrounds are now available on Zoom. Don't use those. Justice Petney mentioned he doesn't want to see you on a beach or anything like that. So keep it very plain, very neutral, a bookcase, an office, something like that. I don't like virtual backgrounds because I think that they sometimes pixelate and start getting all messed up, which can become very distracting. So try your best to have a plain background that's in your house or in your office. So the next tip is to rename yourself. This is what a lot of judges want you to do when you join a virtual hearing. So here you can see I just have my name. That's not enough. Click on the ellipses right here, which will bring down a menu. Click rename, and you want to add what you're doing here. So you add plaintiff's counsel or defendant's counsel, appellant, respondent, whatever it is, but you put what you're doing here so that the judge and the registrar know who you are. If this is a big hearing, it's even more important. And some people say counsel to the plaintiff. I say put plaintiff, appellant, respondent first because it sometimes gets cut off. Long sentences sometimes get cut off in this environment. So number 6 is making sure you pre-file all your documents. In in-person hearings, we always get annoyed when counsel shows up to a hearing with a new affidavit and wants to hand it up. In virtual hearings, it becomes very difficult to do that. You have to email it or somehow interact and coordinate with the registrar to get that document in there. Make sure your documents that you're going to rely on and you're going to use are with the court and with opposing counsel before the start of your virtual hearing. So tip number 7 is making sure that when you share documents, the text is big enough that everyone can read it. This is a problem I see counsel with all the time. They don't make their documents big enough. So I'm sharing a single page of a PDF right now, and as you can see that it's hard to read, especially if you're on a Zoom call or a Zoom virtual hearing. You don't know if the judge is using a laptop, a big screen, or whatever. So when you share the documents, make sure right away you zoom in so it's big enough that everyone can see. If you want to share this paragraph here, make sure that it fits the screen as best as possible so that they can all see. If you want to have this as a part of a compendium, pre-highlighted so that the judge's eyes go straight to the part of the text that you want, even better. So number 8 is close all other apps that you're not using when you're sharing your screen. Close your Outlook. If your text messages come to your computer, turn those off, everything like that. If you share the wrong display or the wrong app, you're going to put up some sensitive information on the screen. You're going to also get rid of any notifications that might come from apps that you're not using that'll disrupt the hearing. Judge Petney on the webcast told a story about how counsel accidentally shared their cross-examination document for the entire hearing to see rather than the document that they wanted to put to the witness, which I'm sure didn't help that lawyer's case. So make sure everything is off your screen, off your computer that you don't want shared during the hearing. Tip number 9, watch for a hot mic. We all know when you start talking, you got to make sure you're unmuted. But when you stop talking, you got to make sure you're muted. If your mic is on when you don't think it's on and you start talking to your co-counsel or you start talking to your witness, you could say something that could really hurt your case if everyone hears it. So be really careful about hot mics. So tip number 10, the last tip today, is about having equipment backups and just monitoring and making sure all your equipment works. Your internet could go out at any time. If you have a hotspot on your cell phone, make sure that's ready to go so you can rejoin the meeting as soon as you can. If you have kids doing virtual school at home, make sure that other things that are using internet are turned off in your house so that you don't use up too much bandwidth. If you have a microphone like I'm using, that's great, but also have a backup pair of headphones in case there's echoing or things like that you can't anticipate. Always have something ready to go in case there is a bit of an emergency. So those are the top 10 tips extracted from Justice Petney's webcast, which I said is linked below in the description. So if you want to check that out, I'm going to give you a bonus tip while we're here. Zoom seems to be the application of choice for a lot of courts. One thing Zoom doesn't do is update itself automatically in a lot of circumstances. So always check that you're using the latest version of Zoom. You got to do it manually. Sometimes they add new features that the courts rely on, like breakout rooms and things like that have only come out in newer versions. So check for updates to Zoom. My name is Dan Rossman. This was my top 10 tips as extracted from the federal court's webcast. I hope you liked it. Leave any comments below that you think I might want to read. If I've done anything wrong or you could do it better, I'd love to hear it. Or if there's anything else you want me to focus a video on. So good luck in your next virtual hearing, and see you later.